Let us define first what is tourism and hospitality. According to UNWTO, tourism comprises the activities of persons traveling to and staying in places outside their usual environment for not more than one consecutive year for leisure, businesses, and other purposes. Hospitality industry is a wide range of business. Each of these business caters people away from their home. It comes from an old French word, hospice, which means to provide care or shelter to travelers.
Tourism and hospitality industry are one of the biggest and the most known service industry in the world. These two come together when a person travel and spend his time engaging in a tourism activity for his leisure, recreation, or other purposes. We all know that tourism and hospitality industry consist of businesses that plays a major role when it comes to the delivery of various guest services, as these services differ from one person or guest to the other and depending on what kind of tourism is being offered. Since there is an obvious relationship between the guest and the service provider, law also comes into play when businesses interact with their customers through the provision of goods and services.
According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, law is defined as a binding custom or practice of a community. It is a rule of conduct or action prescribed or formally recognized as binding or enforced by a controlling authority.
As stated in the Oxford Dictionary, law is a whole system of rules that everyone in a country or a society must obey.
As specified in the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, general law is a law unrestricted as of time. It is applicable throughout the entire territory subject to the power of the legislature that enacted it, and applies to all persons in the same class. It is also known as the common law. Here are the examples of general law. First is the constitutional law, second is the administrative law, third is the criminal law, and lastly is the financial and tax law. Constitutional law is the body of law derived from the country's written constitution. It lays down and guides the duties and powers of the government, and the duties and rights of its citizens and residents. The Constitution of the Philippines is the supreme law of the Philippines. The Constitution currently in effect was enacted in 1987 during the administration of President Corazon C. Aquino and is popularly known as the 1987 Constitution. Philippine constitutional law experts recognize three other previous constitutions as having effectively governed the country: the 1935 Commonwealth Constitution, the 1973 Constitution, and the 1986 Freedom Constitution. Constitutions for the Philippines were also drafted and adopted during the short-lived governments of Presidents Emilio Aguinaldo and Jose P. Laurel. Administrative law is the branch of modern law under which the executive department of the government, acting in a quasi-legislative or quasi-judicial capacity, interferes with the conduct of the individual for the purpose of promoting the well-being of the community. Administrative law is a recent development, being a consequence of the ever-increasing complexities of the society and the proliferation of problems of government that cannot readily or effectively be addressed by the public agencies or solved by other disciplines of public law. Criminal law is the body of law that relates to crime. It regulates social conduct and prescribes whatever is threatening, harmful, or otherwise endangering to the property, health, safety, and moral welfare of people. It includes the punishments of people who violate these laws. Criminal law varies according to jurisdiction and differs from civil law, where emphasis is more on dispute resolution and victim compensation than on punishment. Tax law in the Philippines covers national and local taxes. National taxes refers to the national internal revenue taxes imposed and collected by the national government through the Bureau of Internal Revenue or BIR, and local taxes refer to those imposed and collected by the local government. The rule of taxation shall be uniform and equitable. The Congress shall evolve a progressive system of taxation. All money collected on any tax levied for a special purpose shall be treated as a special fund and paid out for such purposes only. If the purpose for which a special fund was created has been fulfilled or abandoned, the balance, if any, shall be transferred to the general funds of the government.
Based on the definition of Merriam-Webster Dictionary, a special law is a law that applies to a particular place, or especially to a particular member or members of a class of persons or things in the same situation, but not to the entire class. It will become unconstitutional if the classification made is arbitrary or without a reasonable or legitimate justification or basis. Civil law settles disputes between people, disputes concerning a contract, property, family, and tort cases. The product of the codification or the arrangement of the private law in our country is the Civil Code of the Philippines. It was enacted in the year 1950 and remains in force to date with some significant amendments. Next is the commercial law or the business law. It comprises the whole set of laws related to trade and sales. It includes laws on business contract, sale of goods, banking, insurance, finance, partnership, bankruptcy, and taxation. It helps to define the rights and obligations of parties on different types of contracts, such as agency agreement, guarantees, contract of carriage, sale and purchase of goods. Next is the labor law. Labor law mediates the relationship between the workers, trade unions, employing entities, and the government. In our country, we have a law governing the employment practices and labor relations, which is we call the Labor Code of the Philippines. And the international private law. It regulates the relationship between private persons, whether they are natural or legal citizens of a two different states. It is a set of rules and regulations established and agreed upon by the citizens of different nations who will enter into a private transaction, and that will govern them during an event of a dispute.